I'm Maren Riley. I am a dark thriller romance author, currently working on book 3 of the Crave series. You may know me from my previous books, Grave Obsession and Grave Possession, which are available now on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited.
Welcome to Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. This is a soft space to explore darkness, romance, and books where no topic is too taboo. I'm your host, Casey, and this week I am sitting down with author Maren Riley. Marin is the author of Grave Obsession, Grave Possession, and Wrong Turn. Personally, I am really drawn to Marin's writing, and I think it's because I recognize the raw truth in what her characters experience and how love, obsession, and survival collide throughout her books with jaw-dropping twists. I'm also really inspired by her ability to sit in the dark spaces with her readers, where some of us have lived for moments, hours, or even years. And she does this to tell these stories and to remind us of our strength, our softness, and our resilience. So today we'll discuss what inspires her books, what motivated her to expand the Grave series, and why she refuses to fade to black when it comes to both the trauma and the healing that her characters experience. We'll also explore dark romance as a genre, trauma survivorship, the myth of the perfect survivor, and how, for some readers, dark romance is an opportunity to process some of their own traumatic experiences in a safe space without the questions and judgment that the world can sometimes burden us with. Make sure to stay with us to the very end, as Marin will also share a beautiful love letter to Mallory, the FMC from the Grave series that we have all come to know and love. Marin, welcome to the Love Letters and Books podcast. I am so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I picked up your book, Grave Obsession, a few months ago, and I could not put it down. I absolutely loved it. The plot, the characters, the themes. And so, of course, I had to reach out to you and invite you on the podcast so I could pick your brain a bit, because I've also picked up your second book, Grave Possession, and I'm halfway through that. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today and just talk more about what goes into your books and your characters and just all things dark romance and books. So where should we start? I mean, I would love if you could just give us a little synopsis of Grave Obsession for people who are kind of meeting you for the first time or picked up the book and liked it. Tell us about that book.
Well, it kind of starts off like I don't want to say a typical stalker romance, because a lot of feedback that I got about it was like that it just seemed so normal, like something as insignificant as a gas station conversation in the checkout line causes this for him. It wasn't like some crazy elaborate, like there's no ball, there's no grand meeting where their eyes meet across the room or anything like that. It was literally just her being her and being snarky, right? Like you would be to like somebody who's looking at you in the checkout line. So yeah, it kind of starts out like that. And then as you get further into it, it kind of evolves into more of this thriller aspect that's kind of playing in the background behind their romance story. And I thought that that was really engaging because it like, wasn't supposed to happen. It all just kind of evolved as I was writing. So it was really fun to write because I was like, oh, I should do this. And then, oh, I should do this. So it just grew from this kind of normal stalker romance that I had plotted to it's grown into this massive thing, right? So it's kind of twisty, kind of turny, and then kind of just leaves your jaw on the floor when you finish it. So
Oh, I love how casually you're saying that. It's twisty, it's turning, and then it leaves your jaw on the floor, which it absolutely does. And when you're
well, it
saying
comes out of nowhere, right?
it comes out of nowhere, and there are a lot of twists and turns in this book. So I would love to go a little bit deeper and talk about your main characters. What about them spoke to you? Why did they need a story, and what brought them to life?
Mallory just kind of appeared, and her story's really sad. It gets worse, but it's sad, and it comes kind of from a place of personal experience, but also at the same time knowledge, right? Like I know how people handle things and I know what can happen. And her story just kind of grew in my mind and it needed to be told. Ghost tries to help her, but not in the way where he's like dragging her through it. Like he needs her to get there on her own. All of these little things that are happening and unsettling her are keeping her out of her own mind, where she falls into this disassociative cycle. So now that there's somebody lurking around, she's got like this hyper awareness now, which is kind of keeping her there and present in the moment instead of her living in her trauma, basically. I wanted to write a strong female character that didn't need a man, but she wants him. She likes Lennox. He's a cop. He's a good guy. He's a stand-up guy, he's a protector, but there's Ghost, who's also so much more to this, and he calls to like that dark, twisted side of her that's developed because of her trauma, right? As most of us with it know, it can turn you into a different person of yourself, like a different version, right? So she is both of these people. She is her trauma, but she's also not, right? And Ghost and Lennox kind of feed each side of her in a different way, right? So I think it's really important as like a theme to find somebody who works well with every version of yourself, not just the one that you present to society. That whoever your partner is needs to work with you and you guys need to jive on every level. It's really what makes a relationship work and makes it worthwhile, that you don't have to hide who you are from who you're with, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's so beautiful as a reader to have the spotlight on this really interesting main female character who has survived trauma, who's experiencing trauma, who's also just living her life. I feel like there's almost this false narrative that you have something terrible happen and then life stops. It's like, no, life keeps going. She's still a young woman. She's still trying to be out there in the world, and all of this is going on. And I thought it was really interesting how you're seeing all of her strengths rise to the surface, all of her, I don't want to say residue, but we have that when we're carrying the trauma with us, how that is part of us, it's moving with us, but there's also all of these other parts. And then you have a main male character who is interesting to say the least because he also has many different parts to his personality. So for anyone who's sort of entering this and a little confused, you've mentioned Lennox and Ghost. Can you give us just a little overview of what's going on with our very interesting main male character here?
Well, Ghost he's got this dark side, right? It's kind of the place where his trauma has lived and breathed since he was young, right? He's got a very traumatic backstory. Fortunately for him, he was taken in as a child. So while he has lots of lingering trauma and like childhood PTSD and all of those things, Oscar, the captain there, he was able to like take Lennox in and shape him into like a well-raised, fully rounded human being. But he still has this part of him, and I've alluded to it little bits here and there, troubled past, I'm breaking into this house, I can pick your lock, no problem, kind of deal,
Yeah.
right? And like there's a line that says, I've never been this way before. Why has my ugly side all of a sudden reared its head when dealing with this woman? So I've been able to keep myself in check for a long time and now I can't. So this ravenous, possessive side, protective side of him is new for him as well because he's never dealt with this
Mm.
before. So him just going out there and offing people to protect her is also new for him. He doesn't second guess it at all, but he's like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
like he tried to be the good guy still and stay away from her. Then he just wasn't able to.
Well, I think it's bringing up a really interesting theme of we can do a really good job of masking just people in general. We can
Yeah.
walk through the world and no one ever knows what's ever happened to us. They don't know about our past. We can wear that 1,000-pound mask all day long, come home, crash, drop the mask, pick it up the next morning. And it's very interesting when you interact with someone, which is sort of happening in your story where you're almost unable to mask. And it just triggers something in you just by being in that person's presence. And not only is it almost disruptive to your life,
but in a lot of ways it's cathartic, it's healing, it brings things to the surface. So
Mhm.
it kind of pushes back against that idea that, oh, I was just supposed to stuff all this down forever and that would be
Yeah.
good, right? Instead, it's all bubbling to the surface and it happens a little awkwardly, right? Like you're not sure how to navigate this. Ghost is a little surprised at how he's behaving. Mallory's surprised at how she's behaving, but it's
Well, yeah,
really
she's into it.
compelling.
So
Oh,
she's
she's
like,
into it, but it's
"Follow me."
a whole new world, and that's what's so exciting as a reader. You're along
Yeah.
for the ride where she's maybe crossing all of these little lines she wouldn't have crossed before, and you're with her in that, and then she has kind of a new playmate to do that with her. But it's very interesting because for trauma survivors, that's a really challenging space to be in. You can be in a very contracted state sometimes. So
Yeah.
to cross little lines, to do things outside your comfort zone, to explore a new identity is really challenging. And it's so beautiful and healing to be the reader along for the ride. And it's such an interesting story. The tension's building all throughout the story because you kind of feel like there's something going on in the background. And I am not going to give anything away, but what an ending to the book. I could not wait for Grave Possession to come out because I really needed the part 2. But tell us about your journey as a writer and how this story was unfolding for you and how it has expanded. Maybe what you thought you were writing and what you ended up
Yeah.
writing.
I've always really liked to write. I went through like a poetry phase in my teens, like probably every struggling teenager does. But yeah, my English teacher in high school was very much like, you have a gift, don't lose it. You know what I mean? Like, you can lose yourself in life because it just becomes so cumbersome. But she was very much like, don't do that. Don't stop writing. Doesn't matter what you're writing, just keep writing. So I definitely lost it for years, being a mom and everything that goes with that. Definitely makes you put things aside to provide for your family and all that. But the idea just it popped into my head while I was doing laundry. And I wrote it down immediately because I didn't want to forget it. And it just started out as like I wrote the first line of the book and it's like, what the fuck was that? Or whatever, right? And she sees something out of the corner of her eye in the woods. And I was like, what if he waves at her? So I'm just standing there in my laundry room typing on my phone, writing this down. And then it just kind of sat in my notes forever and I never did anything with it. And then I was home alone one day again, and I was literally like just doing chores, cleaning the kitchen or whatever I was doing. And I was like, oh, what if somebody was watching me while I did this? And then it kind of like evolved into that. And then I asked my friend, does this sound like a good book idea? Right? She's one of my very best book friends. I met her through Book Talk. Yeah, so she was like, I will read the shit out of that. Write it. I was like, okay. And then I just kind of sat on it because I didn't have any inspiration to like write anymore, right? And then I was critiquing a book at bedtime one time, and my husband's like, when are you going to write your own book? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, read this. Tell me what you think. And I handed him my phone, and he's like, okay, so why don't you do that? And then it just kind of it went from there, right? And he was super supportive. It made writing a lot easier. He never made it feel like I was taking time away from our family to do something that I enjoy, you know what I mean? Because when you are an indie author and you're writing something, you pour all of yourself into it and you don't know what's going to happen. Right? You don't know if people are going to like it. You don't know if you're going to make any money. Months went into this, and like money for a new computer, money for devices and stuff for formatting, like all of those things cost a lot of money. And fortunately, I was able to get it done and publish it, and people really seem to like it. And like it's made writing a lot more enjoyable. Like I have a little bit more confidence in myself. Like, sometimes I second guess what I write. But I always ask like my little group of like alphas. I'm like, is this too much? And they're like, no, don't go do that. Go write the rest of that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so the writing journey has been really fun. I have a really good support system at home. He enjoys what I write. So, and like my friends enjoy what I write. And the people that I've encountered along the way, people that message me and they're like, I love this book. How dare you leave me on this cliff, right? Like, I get real joy out of everybody's reactions to my book. Whether it's, scenes from book 2 and they're like, I can't look at food the same way, or, the cliffhanger from book one, or the ladder scene, or like, how did you come up with all of these things? And I'm like, I don't know. It just happens. But my friend Harley Beck, she's another writer. She's like, get your plot down and write for you. She calls me a pantser because I've like write by the seam of my pants or whatever, right? Like I've got like the general storyline, but then it can just go off any which way it wants because I don't really follow that. Like I've got these main things that I need to hit, and then everything else in between is just whatever I want, right? So when writing, like I said, it was just supposed to be a stalker romance novel, and then I'm like, oh, but what if I did this? And then oh, but what if I did this? What if there's this true crime angle? Because I am obsessed with true crime. It was very easy to write because I could like just listen to it all the time. So it just evolved while I was writing. There was no plot for an unknown, and there was no plot for like a crazy serial killer and like all of this other stuff. It was just supposed to be him, pissed that he has to divide his time between work and Mallory. And then I'm like, but we're going to do this instead. We're going to make
look
this a
the
whole
direction
thing.
they went in, because they totally took a new direction. And then I always think it's interesting when you're ending a book and what that is like for the writer to know that you're starting this next book in the chapter, and maybe a story that you thought would be a standalone is expanding, the universe you're writing in is expanding. What has that been like for you?
Great Obsession was supposed to be a standalone. A very like small, like 200-page standalone, and it's grown into much more than that. I love my side characters as well, like Victoria. She's going to become a major player. A lot of my side characters become main characters, but at the same time, Mallory and Knox are still going to be fairly prominent. It's not going to revolve completely around them, but I've taken book 2 in such a way that there's at least 3 different storylines now that have to be tied up, and it's just grown into so much more than I ever expected it to be. And as for the ending of book 1, that was decided before I finished it, because I was like, if I did this, people are going to hate me because book 2 is not done yet. Like, it wasn't even close to being done. But I was like, if I do this, because I thought it was like just a phenomenal way to end a book where somebody wants to throw it across the room. I'm like, yeah, you can throw my book because that's worth, like, I like that. Yeah, I was like, I need to plot book 2 to make sure that I have enough to write after I do this cliffhanger, right? So yeah, I was like, Mallory can go one of 2 ways, right? And I plotted like each way, and then I was like, yeah, I got enough of a storyline. We're gonna chop people off at the knees and then leave them.
Well, on that note, let's talk about book 2. Let's talk about Grave Possession. One of the things that stood out to me when I purchased it was the blurb. And just to read something Mallory says is, even if I have to smash the woman I am to smithereens and become an unrecognizable monster, I'll find my way back or die trying. The only question is, will they still love me after they know what I've done? And I think that just spoke to me as a reader, as a survivor, as a woman, all of those things where we have to survive in this world where we almost have to package ourselves, make ourselves acceptable, make ourselves digestible. And here is this person in just an unimaginable situation, and her only focus is to survive. And how harshly we judge survivors, almost more harshly sometimes than we judge abusers. And so it's such an interesting book to walk into, especially with that sentence lingering in my mind of, who is she going to turn into in this book, and what does she have to do? So I am halfway through Grave Possession. You have me in an absolute chokehold. The resentment I had for working today is, I can't even measure it. I've just been in a terrible mood all day because I just want to curl up with my book and finish it. And I am just sitting here horrified at her journey and rooting for her and wanting the best and cheering her on, and just lit up every time she just bites back. And I just think it's such an interesting character. And I would love to kind of pick your brain about her journey in this second book and what that transformation is like for her.
It's in the beginning, it's almost like she can't grasp it. You know what I mean? Like these feelings and emotions that she's dealing with in this situation. And then there's a spot in it where her abuser comes through in like the weirdest time, and what he says in a weird way like gives her clarity, and she's like, no, I'm fine, right? And then there's these other times where she hears Ghost. She doesn't hear Lennox, she hears Ghost because she sees him as her protector. It's really a journey of self-acceptance, but there's these parts of her that have to accept that what she went through in book 1 with Dennis basically made her strong enough to survive this. Her trauma warped and twisted her enough that she can get on this unknown man's level and one up him,
Mhm.
right? Like she's going to contort herself into whatever she needs to get the hell out of this situation. And it's because of her trauma that she is strong enough to survive it. People are always like, "Oh, you're like it makes you stronger," but it does. It screws you up, and you have to live with it. But a lot of the times, you're like, "I survived that. I could survive this. I am fine. I will be fine. I can get through this." Right? And a lot of the times, you need to hit a point in your own mind, kind of where you realize that I have been through worse, and it sucks to admit that you've been through worse, but it's not as bad as what's happening to me right now. I can get through it, or I'm going to survive whatever this sicko does to me because I need to. I want to survive it. I want to get out of here. I wanted a strong female character that didn't need anybody else. And she does realize that she doesn't need Ghost. She doesn't need Victoria. She doesn't need anybody but herself. She's strong enough to do it on her own. And a
Yeah.
lot of us women that we want the support, we need to realize that we don't need it. It's nice to have somebody see you and hear you and, you know, validate your feelings and make you feel seen so you don't feel alone. And those things are all really important. But a lot of the time, me personally, I've had to do things alone. I've had to pull myself out of situations and I didn't have anybody to lean on.
Mhm.
So I needed a female character that conveys that.
Yeah. I think the readers are really going to feel that because so many of the things you just said, and we could unpack that for the next hour, but one of the things that you said was her choosing herself at every stage. And that is so challenging as women in general. Like there's so much pushback against us doing that. But then also, if you feel like you've been whittled down, if you've experienced trauma and you feel like someone has almost chipped away parts of yourself, and then this rebellion of choosing yourself and taking care of yourself and doing whatever you need to do, um, that almost just pushes back against that idea that we're supposed to make ourselves smaller and just fit in and make it easier for everyone else. And it's really inconvenient, the things we need to do to survive, right? It's inconvenient for other people,
Yep.
but it is powerful in the story. And then it's also interesting, I think, looking at your book, and I want to get more into this later about how healing and how helpful these kinds of books are. There's almost that moment where you experience grief because you realize you don't have that almost naivete of thinking, oh, I do need everyone else or someone's going to save me. When you've experienced these things before and you've survived worse, you almost just know, you have that inner knowing that, oh no, it's me. I'm going to be the one to do this. I can get through it. And there's something amazing about that. And there's something a little sad about that too. But it is powerful and makes for such a compelling character. I mean, just to root for her through all that she's going through and to know that she will come out on top, it is the reminder that a lot of us need because so much of trauma is unseen, right? We see the aftermath sometimes, but not everyone knows what we go through, and it's none of their business sometimes. So this book kind of takes you through that journey. You're seeing the nitty gritty. You're seeing everything she's going through, everything she's doing to cope and survive. And it is really powerful because of that. So let's talk a little bit about how this genre or books similar to yours, or even just your book and what you're putting the characters through, can be helpful and healing and pushes back against the idea that, oh, it's just a book or it's just a dark romance or it's just a, people throw the just at a lot of things
Yeah.
that women do. So let's talk about that. What was it like for you to write a book that is so heavy and beautiful and relatable?
It's really hard. I'll be perfectly honest. There were probably weeks where I didn't write because I battled with myself about how real I should be. There are parts in there that made me it turned my stomach to write them. Not everybody's going to be in the same position as Mallory, but there are things there when you get down to the nitty gritty that people will have gone through. There's quite a few scenes in part one of Grave Possession that are, while you might not be in that exact situation to a T, somebody you know has or yourself have been in a situation that could be like that. Being forced into things you don't want to do, twisted, made to seem like you're crazy, being alone, feeling like you're breaking apart at the seams basically and you don't know what to do with yourself. There's a lot of things in there that are, I think Mallory's very relatable. And as someone who's lost somebody, I've also been on the side where Ghost is, and he's just losing his fucking mind. Right? So
Yeah.
unfortunately it was very easy for me to write from both perspectives, as being on the sidelines, not being able to do anything and doing everything that you can possibly think of at the same time, and nothing's helping.
Yeah.
But also I've been the victim, as have many of my readers, and it doesn't matter to what extent you were a victim. If you felt like you were, then it's enough to be relatable. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter the depth of the trauma, it's still there. So it was really hard to write those things. I had a pretty good, fantastic sounding board to bounce everything off of, and she's just been great through the entire writing process. She's been quite a rock.
Yeah. And I can
So
imagine for a book that is touching on such heavy topics and is still a beautiful love story, you do need that. You need that sort of sounding board and reassurance. And it sounds like you have that around you, which is incredible. And then
yeah,
as the reader, when you're on this journey, I think one of the most powerful things is throughout this, there's that thread of, she will survive. And I think every trauma survivor has had a moment where they thought they may not, in whatever situation they were in, to whatever degree they were in, whether it's physically, mentally, a part of themselves, they may not get that back. And I
yeah,
think that is what is so powerful, is you've created this universe where we know she will get through this. And in and of itself, that's healing and very helpful and powerful. What is it like to know that people are reading your words and having that response? That it's not just this fantastical fiction. People are
yeah.
feeling like, I may not have been in her situation, but I've been in a similar one. And thank you for writing it.
There's a lot of times where just some people say the nicest things, and I know how much I battled with writing this book and the level of darkness that's in it. I was worried, honestly, because it's pitch black compared to the first book. Let's be perfectly honest. It's like a sharp left turn. So when people tell me that they can feel stuff when they're reading, they can feel Ghost's struggle, they can feel Mallory's despair and her hopelessness. It makes me feel like I made the right choice to have the darkest parts of the book be there, because a lot of the time I battled with whether to write them or not. So I think that having them there makes her coming out of it so much. It makes it more, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because you know the nitty gritty. You know all of the things that he did to her, and her coming out on top while still suffering, but being able to deal with it and cope with it. And then I think that was really important. So when people I'm astounded by the amount of people that read my work. But it's the people that cold message me and they're like, this book is fantastic. And I'm like, thank you. But it was a big worry for me. This book was a huge worry. I wasn't really worried about Grave Possession. I'm like, this book is fucking dope. If nobody reads it, I'm happy because I like it, right? And then this book took so much out of me. I was just I battled for weeks writing it. And I
Oh, I
always
can
felt bad because like
imagine.
it's not done yet and there's people asking me for it, but I'm like, it's not done. It's not, because it's not, I'm not happy with it. And then
Yeah.
it took forever for me to be happy with it. And Harley Beck always tells me to write for myself, write the story I want to tell, and it doesn't matter how dark it is. It doesn't matter how light it is. It doesn't matter how much smut is in it. It doesn't matter how little spice is in it, because I'm not writing for specific people.
Mhm.
I'm writing because I came up with a story that I want to tell, and if people are meant to read it and they're meant to like it, they'll find it. So her voice kind of rings in the back of my head every time I struggle with what to write and how dark to go and what content to put on the page. It's her and the readers and, you know, my little group of friends that really help push me to stay honest to myself and not try to chase what everybody else is writing and what everybody else thinks is popular. I just want to write for myself, right? And the people that want to read that, they'll find it. Yeah.
For anyone listening, I was just pointing to myself. We had a great email exchange when I first reached out to you, and
Yeah, after
you
I
were
picked my jaw up off the floor because there was a podcast that wanted to talk to me. Yeah,
I couldn't wait. Well, if you want to know the truth, I always feel self-conscious reaching out to people. I don't know how people are going to feel about it. I was so excited. I loved your book and I was really looking forward to the second book. But I remember in our email exchange, you just checked in with me and said, the book
yep,
is dark. Is that okay? And my response was, dark is fun. Like, I'm ready for it. Don't
yeah,
worry about it. I've had a dark life. I could read a dark book. I'm okay.
yeah,
But I want to talk about just that aspect of you, even that caretaking, looking out, checking in with me, and how that translates into your readers, these unknown people who are picking up your book, and how you create a sense of safety in your stories. Because, I'm a trauma survivor. I opened your book. I felt fine reading it. I felt seen. I felt heard. I felt
yeah,
understood. So, what is that like for you as you're creating that? Going there, but creating it in a safe way. Because
yeah,
barely knowing you, I see that as part of your personality. Like you even checked in with me on email and said, are
yeah,
you sure you want to do a podcast about this? So, what is it like to create a body of work that will exist outside of you forever and you never
yeah.
know where someone's coming from? How do you put that safety and care into the book, especially when it is a very challenging topic?
Yeah, so trigger warnings are super important.
Mm.
um, and I think through the entire process of promoting Grave Possession, I was very much like, this book is dark. It is got horror elements, like it's not like movie horror. You know, this is like real life
Yeah.
horror, horrendous things that can happen to you. So like I checked in with my street team and I said, make sure, you know, you guys are fantastic, but make sure you, if you promote the book, make sure you tell people it's dark. Like I don't want somebody to like jump into it without reading the trigger warnings first and just think it's going to be like some light fluffy romance with a little bit of danger like
Yeah.
Grave Obsession was, because it's nothing like that. It's very dark. And when people have reached out beforehand, before I released the book, and then they're like, you know, when's the second book coming? And I'm like, please check the trigger warnings. They are available like in my bio. They're there. The entire list is there. It's very long, but it needs to be read
Yeah.
because on page stuff that's not fade to black can be extremely triggering for people, and I don't. It's part of the reason why I battled with whether to write it on page or not, or just have it fade to black, or just flip to the next day and she kind of recounts what happened to her. And just on social media making people aware, like
Yeah.
in promotional videos or reviews, people that, you know, are reviewing on Amazon and Goodreads and stuff, like anywhere that you talk about it with your friends, with anybody, people need to know that it's a level of dark that can take you places, because writing it took me places.
Yeah.
So I know that it can do that. And yeah, like I checked in with you because like I just think it's common
Yeah.
courtesy, but I also don't, if you hadn't read it yet, I want you to be aware that it's nothing like the first book. Like yes, you love these characters, you want to see them succeed, but this isn't some fluffy romance where he swoops in and saves her. Like
Yeah.
it's very dark, it's very rough. So I want people to know that it's like that, and I don't want somebody to be blindsided by it. and then like them be upset, or like
Of course.
trauma triggers them, and like, I want people aware that
Yeah.
there are books out there that are darker than mine, and that's fine. But I wrote this, and if somebody is upset because of what I wrote, I want them to go into it knowing that it has the potential to upset them.
Yeah. Well, I would love to share a little bit from my perspective if you're open to it. And
Sure.
that is that very often survivor experiences are faded to black in the world. So people almost have no ability to understand the depths of the horror that another person can take you to. And it seems almost unimaginable. So when survivors see their stories on a page, it is really grounding and empowering. And I do think it helps to create empathy and understanding, because just as humans, we have this overlap of empathy and understanding. And then there's that weird thing that comes in where we judge and we say, why are you like that? Why are you making that decision? Why are you doing that? Why did you do that? And I feel like because so many of the stories are so often hidden or glamorized, or there's a sheen, or we just wrap it up in a yada, 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 and then that happened, instead of going there, I feel like we can very easily disconnect. And so, as someone who's had a little bit of a darker story, I can just tell you that I really appreciated that you bravely and compassionately went there on the page and took someone through that story and were focused on all the aspects of her entire journey, moments when she was, you know, just overflowing with strength, and moments when she was very fearful, because that's also very real. So it's just my love letter from me to you, that I really feel that you're speaking to a core group of readers who never see their stories on a page because the story is so horrific, and that changes it for all of us. So just want to leave you with that. But
Thanks.
well, are you okay? I feel bad. I
Yeah,
don't want to. Good. So that was just my reflection on what it's like to be a reader and to pick up this book. But what is your hope for people when they close your book? So someone sitting down today and finishing Grave Possession, what is your wish for them and how they would feel afterwards?
I think I wanted to leave the readers okay, but still wanting more. So, like, the way that it ends, it's going in a direction basically towards Victoria. Knox and Mallory are kind of like happy, stable. They accept each other. They love the shit out of each other. They're good to go. But through the entire course of book 2, you're just kind of like, what is happening with Victoria? Why is she behaving this way? So at the end of that, I've kind of left you with like, oh, now she wants to show up. So like that's kind of gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when people close my book, first of all, I want them to want to read more. But even though, like I said, Knox and Mallory are kind of, they might appear to be wrapped up with a little bit of a bow, they're not. They'll be back. They've got multiple storylines coming for both of them, and like I said before, it's grown into so much more than I expected it to. But yeah, when the readers close my book, I want them to just have enjoyed what they read, whether it be the spice that's in there, the darkness, the depravity, the heaviness of it, the banter.
Yeah.
Everybody loves their banter. I want them to have genuinely liked what they read. Yeah, it's rough in some parts, but like you can still read something that is horrendous to read and you like it. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of what I want.
Oh, I love
Even
that.
if you're annoyed with me for the ending, I still want you to have liked what you read.
So I'm midway through Grave Possession and I'm right at the cusp, and I am so excited to see how this story ties up. But one of the things you and I discussed on the pre-production call was survivorship, and that looking very different than people imagine it to be sometimes. It's not one dimensional. There is an array of things that come up for people. It is a spectrum. It is not one size fits all. And I would love to explore that with you and maybe some of the choices you made for this character. So, Mallory has been through it. We love her. We're rooting for her. And then in her survivorship and in her getting through this, what does that bring up for people and what will surprise people?
It was difficult to write her after. I battled with what way to take it and which way she would choose to deal with what she went through. And I don't want to call it the typical way that people think survivors deal with trauma, but it is the one that's most, I believe, widely expected. You curl into yourself, you withdraw, feel dirty, can't get clean, all of these other things, right? Your self worth is shattered, and you take a really bad road after. And I'm not saying that Mallory didn't take a bad road. She has gone. I chose to take her character in a less talked about way where she is with somebody she trusts, she feels safe, and she wants his hands on her. Like, she wants him to erase everything that she went through. She wants him to know she's not broken. And by her telling him that this is what she wants, she's controlling what happens to her. I don't want you to treat me like I'm broken. I don't want you to think that I'm dirty. Like, I don't. She straight up tells him that he didn't break her. So don't treat me like I'm broken. I'm not a toy that needs to sit on a shelf for fear of breaking into irreparable pieces. Hypersexuality is a result of trauma and sexual abuse and those things, and it is the less talked about, probably more controversial thing to pick, but personally I have experience. So it was hard to write it, but at the same time, it's accurate that you are with somebody you trust, and by having control over what happens to you, by you making it known that you don't want your partner to change, you want them to treat you the exact same, and they're walking on eggshells because they don't know how to approach you because you've just been through literal hell. So he's like, like, I don't know what to do. I don't want you to think that I think that you're dirty, but like, I don't want to push you into something that you're not ready for, right? So you get his internal dialogue and his struggle with her coming back because he doesn't not want his hands on her, right? She's back. He wants to like fucking stick her in his pocket and never let her go, but he's like, I don't know what to do because like, I don't want to do something you don't want. I don't want you to touch you in a way that's going to trigger you. Like, I don't want to set you back. So by her expressing and communicating that she's like, no, 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 I want you to behave the exact same. Do not change anything about what you do, and if you do something wrong, I will let you know. But like, I don't want things to change. And there is a lot of spice through part 2 of the book, and a lot of that is her finding herself again, because sexuality, it was just wielded against you like a weapon, right? So once you can gain control of that and accept that part of yourself, she's able to move on. And Ghost is there for her step for step, meeting every single fucking challenge that she's got, basically, right? So yeah, she's still hiding things from him, and it takes a while for her to accept herself, but he's there every step of the way. And I think it was just important to shed some light on a way that survivors deal with trauma that isn't widely talked about.
Well, I'm so glad that we're talking about it here and that you did put that in the book. I think that that's incredibly impactful, and it does push back against this idea that even in survivorship, we have to fit a mold or we have to be the perfect survivor. I think that that's something that is really challenging for people to move through as well, and they don't need any extra burdens when they're going through this. So just thank you for writing such a realistic but fantastic story that takes us on this journey where we can root for these people and just see the healing and see all the different aspects of it, and that it's not polished and pretty and perfect all the time, that healing isn't just being on top of the mountain, it's that hike up, and it's not a one-time thing. So I'm really excited to wrap up the book, and I'm just thrilled that this universe you've created is expanding and that there's so much more to this. I can't wait. And I would love to know, who are you reading? Who inspires you? What books and authors are you looking forward to and following?
Some of my favorite authors are, Harley Beck. She was my first ARC read over a year ago. I had dabbled in dark stuff my entire life, but when she dropped Sinister Legacy, I was like, no, I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring. I'm gonna see how dark it gets. That's straight up erotic horror. So, and I was just in love with her writing. And before that, I don't think I'd ever read erotic horror. Dark romance, yes. Twisted fan fictions, yes. Like all of that stuff, right? But yeah, she was my first, head first into that, and I ate that up. Since then, she has been a favorite. I have read her entire backlog. um, and there's a lot of other great ones. I love Audrey Rush. She's fantastic, very unsettling horror erotic writer, and I love Karina Hale with her paranormal Dracula duet, and she just released Grave Matter not too long ago. That book is fantastic. I love the spice and the psychological horror, and yeah, I love the things that just leave me unsettled. I almost prefer that over like an ending that's wrapped up in a nice little bow.
Yeah.
And because I enjoy that, I think that's probably why I end books the way that I do, because I like a book that just leaves my mind just what? You know what I mean? Like warped. Like, and you're just like, what happened? And like when people tell me that they need to sit on my book for 3 days, I love that because that's what I like. I like being unsettled. I like having a book that's like, well, what was that? Well, how does this go? And I consume true crime at just an incredible rate. It's always in my ears, whatever I'm doing, dinner, chores. As long as I'm not playing with my kids, it's in my ears.
I love that. But do you have a favorite true crime podcast or anything that you follow that you want to give a little shout out to for anyone
Yeah,
who's also interested in that?
I adore Morbid. Elena Urquhart and Ashkel. Elena wrote a book. She wrote Butcher and the Wren, and that was fantastic. Yeah, I love them. I love Crime Junkie, Small Town Murder, but yeah, it's usually Morbid on my ears, just on a repeat. They are fantastic.
I love that. It's one of my favorite things about doing these interviews. I feel like the list of media that I want to consume has grown. I'm hearing about podcasts and books and writers, and I'm so thrilled because I love seeing what inspires other people and what has kind of gone into their work. So I love that you shared that. Thank you so much. And now it's time for the part of this episode that I'm worried that you've been stressing about. No one knows that on our pre-production call, I dropped this on you that every guest who joins reads a love letter that they've written either to their younger self or their reader or a character. And Marin, I would love to hear your love letter.
So I struggled with this, I won't lie, because I have such a wide reader base, you know what I mean? I felt like I couldn't actually just pick one type of reader and write to them. And that's why I asked you if I could write to her, because I felt like by talking to her, I could talk to everybody because I see her in so many parts of everybody else.
Yeah.
Are we good?
We're good. I'm ready.
Okay. So I wrote, Dear Mallory, thank you for being my muse. Your story is a sad one, but it's one I feel is important to tell. It is for anyone who's ever felt alone, who has ever waged a war within themselves and felt like they lost, for those who fight to overcome and even love the darkest parts of themselves. This story is yours, but it is also ours. I hope the readers find resonance and solace within you, for you were crafted after them. The best and darkest parts of us all. The parts we forge not by the hardships of our past, but by our capacity to endure, thrive, and survive. Within these pages, there is a story of trauma, mental health, and abuse, but there is also a story of healing, growth, and love. And it's love not only for yourself, but for another person as well. People are going to feel you in their bones. Their pain will become yours, and your strength will become theirs. Through you, they'll discover something that they've been searching for. They'll heal, feel safe, empowered, and seen. Readers will find relief in my words, whether it be from trauma, stress, the daily grind, or a battle they're fighting that no one knows about. They'll escape the things that weigh them down, outrun them with every turn of the page because of you. Your story is for everyone because you are parts of us all, and those stories deserve to be told. Love, Marin.
Oh, Marin, thank you so much. And I really appreciate how much you put into that because I know I dropped this on you last minute, but that was so
I had
beautiful.
no prep time.
It was so beautiful and better than anyone could have ever asked for. So I really appreciate that. And I think it means a lot to people who read your books and are just inspired and feel seen and heard. So thank you.
Thank you.
So let's take a second, take a breath.
I read that so many times, I would not cry
Oh, no, it's
when I
okay.
wrote it or when I read it.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I appreciate you going there for us because it just means a lot, you know?
Thank you.
Where can people listening find you and find your work?
My books can be found on Amazon, an ebook and paperback, and they are available also to read on Kindle Unlimited. And I can be found and reached on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Just drop me a direct message.
Excellent. And I'll make sure to link all of that in the show notes. So please make sure if you're listening to check those and you'll be able to get in touch with Marin. So, Marin, thank you so much for being here. This was such a beautiful conversation and I loved getting to know you. So, I really hope that you'll come back and join us again and we'll hear more about your universe and the things that you're doing.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can find me on both Instagram and TikTok at Love Letters and Books. And if you're interested in being a guest on Love Letters and Books, suggesting your favorite author, or just want to write in an original love letter to yourself or someone else to be read on air, please send me an email at lovelettersandmixtapes@gmail.com.